Here's the key to success in life. Treat every decision, even the smallest moral decisions. I will gossip, I won't gossip. I will steal, I won't steal. I will shame somebody, I won't shame somebody. I will observe Shabbat, I won't observe Shabbat. I will eat kosher, I won't eat kosher. Seemingly, one could argue these are the smaller moral decisions with less significant consequences from them versus the ones I've been speaking about in previous chapters, convert or die. Alter Rebbe says, treat every single one of those decisions as a life and death matter, or a spiritual life and death matter. Not just treat it that way, it actually is that way. Once we understand that, we'll be able to resolve our question that we left off in last class. This chachma of your soul, which is the essence of who you are and your connection with your creator, your source of life, no matter how far low you're fallen, it can always be aroused to allow you to gain control of your life once again when it gets triggered, when it gets threatened, and it gets threatened by a life and death matter, convert or die. But by a more simple, smaller moral dilemma, how do we ensure to be able to arouse chachma to gain control over ourselves, to get back on track? So the Alter Rebbe says, let's figure this out. God gave 613 mitzvot, laws in the Torah. There are 248 positive commands and 365 prohibitive commands. Now, originally when God gave us the Torah on Mount Sinai, they were the 10 commandments. And there's all different opinions about how those 10 commandments were communicated to the Jewish people. Did God say all 10 or he didn't say all 10? There's an opinion, in fact, that God said the first 2. And then the Jewish people said, we can't handle this anymore. This God voice and this God revelation is too much for us. We can't bear it. So they asked Moses to take over. But then the question becomes, God gave only 2, but the other ones he didn't give. So there's a very famous teaching that goes like this. What are the first 2 commandments? The first command is, I am the Lord your God, meaning there's only one God, and it's me. And the second command is, there are no other gods. Don't bow down. Don't practice idol worship. So the first two commands, in the positive and the negative sense, are the commands about the oneness of God, and there is no other God. No, idolatry is forbidden. So the teaching says that the first command of I am the Lord your God, affirming faith in the oneness of God, that is actually the source of all the other positive commands, all the other 247 positive commands. And the second command of there are no other gods, don't bow down to any idols, that is the source for all the 364 other prohibitive commands. Not only are these two commands the source for the entire Torah, but actually every positive mitzvah, whether it's observe Shabbat or help a fellow friend in need, or any positive mitzvah, put on the tefillin, whatever it is not just an extension of, but it's even an affirmation of the very first command of I am the Lord your God. And any prohibitive command, don't steal and don't shame and don't hurt anybody, is not only an extension of, but it's also an affirmation of the prohibition of idolatry. In other words, every positive mitzvah is affirming faith in one God, and every prohibitive mitzvah is affirming that there are no other gods, and I'm not going to practice idolatry. What does that mean? If I do a small sin, I say a little bit lashon hara, I'm practicing idolatry. And if I don't perform a small mitzvah, whatever it is, I'm threatening my belief in God. Alter Rebbe says yes, and this is the key. And to understand this chapter begins a discussion that's going to go over a series of the next couple chapters about a very important spiritual idea described at great length in Kabbalah and in Hasidic teachings. And it's actually more formally, elaborately discussed in the next section of the Tanya called Shar HaYichud Ve'emunah. But here the Alter Rebbe talks about it in a couple chapters. And it's about God's unity, the unity of God. And this is a very central theme in Jewish spiritual teachings because everything that we believe in revolves around the unity of God. God is one and unique. And when we say the famous prayer, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Simply translated, it means there's only one God. And there's no other God. So if there's no other gods, what is there? There's one God. And then there's me and the world around me and all of reality. And there's God and reality. And God is the creator of reality. There's no other God. That's the simple meaning. But the Kabbalah and Hasidic teachings and the Tanya here says that's incorrect and inaccurate. Hashem Echad does not mean there's one God. It means there's only one thing. And that one thing is God. Meaning there only is God. Not that there's no other gods. There's no other thing other than one God. In other words, everything is God. And the same God that was God and singular before he created anything, so there was no other existence, it's the same singularity, the same unity of God after he creates existence, a world. Look, he created around us, me and you and everything around us. So that kind of creation should change the creator. Just like when we create something, if I paint something, if I draw something, if I write something, if I produce something, anything that I do changes me. First of all, before it didn't exist and now it does exist, but also changes me. I evolve, I change. I'm a different kind of person. What did I learn? How did I succeed? How did I fail? But it says about God, even after all of creation, it didn't change. It's the same God. There is no other, even though there appears to be another. What does that mean? Are we suggesting that all of this creation is false? Is an illusion? It's not true? It's not. I think, therefore I am, but maybe this is one big dream. If the whole thing is a dream, it's not even true. I'm in your dream, you're in my dream. Is reality true? Is creation true? On the one hand, we believe it's true. The Torah says it's true. The Torah says, Bereshit bara Elokim, God created the world. But you're also telling me that true unity means that God is one and is the only one at all times, before and after creation. Even though creation was created, it didn't change God at all. God is still only one, and the only thing that exists is truly God. Does that make any sense? So that's going to be the issue, the dilemma. That's the dilemma that a lot of Hasidic spiritual teachings talk about, because it's central to our belief in everything. And that's, Alter Rebbe is going to discuss this in the next chapter. He just, at the end of today's teaching, he provides the first key to understanding, the first tool. And the first tool to understanding is as follows. And we're going to leave off. We're not going to understand what it means, but tomorrow we'll discover more. You have to understand the source, the origin of all creation. If you look at the Torah says clearly, how did God create the world? Through the power of speech, words. Vayomer Elokim yehi or, vayehi or. God said there shall be light, and there was light. God said there should be vegetation, and there was vegetation. Everything was created through the power of God's words. Okay? And therefore, if you understand that everything was created through the power of God's words, you'll understand how even all of this existence and everything that came into being does not change one iota from the state of God's unity, and that the only thing that exists is God at all times, even right now. And understanding God's unity will help us come back to our original discussion of how we can understand that every single mitzvah and moral decision in life is indeed a kind of life and death matter, which allows us to arouse the essence of our soul and put us into control of our life. See you tomorrow. God bless you. Have a great day.